Hello, and welcome to the London United Filmmaker Podcast. My name's Greg Randolph. Today, I'm excited to have Christie Arnold on. We talk about her transition from corporate to filmmaking, her grad film, Girls Together, and some upcoming projects she's been editing. Christie Arnold, I'm so happy to have you on the London United Filmmaker Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much.
It's great to have you on. Christie, you're an amazing friend. You've been a friend since day one at London Film School. You are a fellow American.
Yeah.
We came from the States, actually from Boston to London to attend London Film School. It's just been a wild ride, the past couple years, attending London Film School, going through all the terms, making kind of bigger and better films as it's gone along. Here we are, graduated. We're going to be showing our films at the Graduate Showcase at BFI in January. So it's a huge kind of full circle thing happening.
Yeah.
And lots of good stuff's happening in between and currently. So I'm super happy to have you here. Thanks for making the trek in the awful London weather.
The beautiful rain that we have here.
It's revitalizing.
Yes.
We're turning the bad into the good. And so with the London United Filmmaker Podcast, I'd like to start at the beginnings and kind of get a sense for where you're coming from, what got you into filmmaking.
Yeah.
You have a really interesting past, and you've done lots of really, really cool things even before you got to London Film School with regards to your filmmaking. So I want to ask you, what got you into filmmaking? Mm-hmm. Maybe talk a little bit about where you're from, and just would love to hear more about what got you here.
Yeah, what got me sitting to this exact table with you guys.
Boom.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little unorthodox in the way that I didn't grow up thinking that I was going to be a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. I think that I watched films and movies, and I was kind of like, oh, these things appear. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't thinking about the fact that like people make these, and there's thousands of people working on sets, post-production, all of that stuff. So I actually started to get into film because I love film editing. That's kind of my MO.
Yeah.
So director newly and editor since I would say college.
Yeah.
And what I did in college is I studied English. So I really loved telling stories, and I loved reading stories and how they come to life and looking at character-based stories. And I would make videos of my friends in college, or I would do travel videos of my family. But truly, I had no idea what I was actually doing with the camera, or why I was editing in the ways that I was editing. It just kind of came out, and I was excited to maybe make an audience feel differently for 5 seconds, essentially. So I ended up making travel videos, and I remember in college I had a friend come over to my house. And I brought my camera out, and I was like, do you want to just go walk around the beach and I'll film it?
Yeah, cool.
And she was like, sure. What am I supposed to do? And I was like, I have no idea, but we'll just film it. We'll see what happens.
Cool.
So I edited that together, and I put it to a song, and I remember posting it out, and a couple of our friends being like, what's Christie doing? Is she trying to be a film? What's happening? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just having fun.
Yeah.
And that ended up turning into getting an internship with a company that was shooting some videos for something called Valid Fill, which is the dispensers of Diet Coke, basically, on cruise ships, for example. Mm-hmm. So I went into that. I shot a couple of videos for that, and I taught myself Premiere Pro on the job to cut those, which was the guy asking me for the video being like, oh yeah, can you send the cut through on 3 days from now? And I was like, for sure. And I'm Googling over here how to edit on Premiere Pro.
Yep.
So that kind of got me into it, and it was just me doing little projects and things like that. After college, I still didn't consider moving into film. I went into marketing.
Yeah.
So I did brand marketing for IBM. And moved into producing client stories with our Fortune 500 clients, which was very cool. But I ended up getting on a set that I junior produced from the client, our side was client side.
Right. I remember we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I got on as a junior producer, and I remember sitting in the room because I was on set basically all day long, watching everyone do everything, kind of run around. Got in the elevator with the sound recordist, and he was like, you just have to stay really silent because I need to get like the ambience of this small room. And I was like, okay, what's he doing? And the producers on that actually said to me that I should consider a role in film. So from there, it was kind of like little bits of my life were coming together in this weird way. And I was kind of noticing it, but also trying to go like the 9 to 5, work my way up the ladder, which mostly is just because my family did that. All my friends were doing that. It just felt like normal. Yeah. And then from there, I ended up deciding, okay, if I really want to do post-production, I actually have to learn the software and like learn why I'm making the cuts the way that I'm making them. So I went to Emerson, did night courses at Emerson. And while I worked at IBM, so like Tuesday nights, I would go and do like an hour and a half with these other like people age range from, I would say, like 18 to 40 who were just interested in going into post-production and learning it. And from that, I shot a documentary on my family, and I cut that together. And that's what I used to get into the London Film School. So that's how we got to London.
Amazing.
That was like my speedy past for you. But truly, I think it was just, I was always kind of on this path. I just didn't recognize that I was. And it was something that I like loved to do, but I didn't understand how to kind of move into this area full time.
Sure.
So yeah, applying to London Film School was like the way, I guess, I kind of fully cracked and like made that switch into the film industry. Which I'm very happy I did. I'm super happy to be sitting here and chatting about film with you.
Yeah. No, it's such a nice. You really noticed something that you had a passion for, and I think sometimes you can feel really like I gotta stick on something that's a bit more kind of a normal.
Like traditional sense.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's totally fine as well. Of course, like I think that fits for a lot of people, but you noticed a passion and you went after it. I had no idea you went to you were doing classes at Emerson, which is a pretty reputable film school in Boston. So that's really awesome. I wanted to ask a little bit about, one of the videos that you made that I've seen is partially about when you were living in Australia. Yeah. And I'm curious, I think that's something that an audience would really be interested in hearing more about, is a little bit about your experience living in Australia. Yeah. Where you're from, like, originally, just a little bit about that time period. Because you're such a cutie pie in that video, I was
Clip the video
no,
here.
There's such no, we'll link it. We'll happy to link it in when this finally gets posted. Cool. But could you talk a little bit about that? Yeah,
of course. So essentially, my mom's job moved us over to Australia. So I lived in Wahroonga, Australia, which is like a suburb outside of Sydney. Yeah. And we were there for 2.5 to 3 years, but I was only 3 years old. Yeah. So in my head, it's like the golden years of my life, because I'm free, so everything's rose-colored glasses. I'm like, I think back to when you were
Australia.
Free. Perfect. Yeah, exactly. So what had happened actually was I knew I needed to make a documentary. Yeah. I was at home with my family, so I knew I needed to be on them. And I had no idea what I wanted to do, but my mom had digitized a bunch of VHS tapes that my dad used to run around with a camcorder all the time. So thank God for that. I love watching those. But I was looking at them back, and I was like, so I'm really interested in the human psyche and why people do the things that they do, and how they think, and how memory works, and how we respond to each other. And so when I was watching these videos back from Australia and my childhood, I realized that a lot of the memories that I had of my childhood there was passed down verbally from my parents to me, in case where I kind of made those memories for myself, and it wasn't actual reality. They were similar. It would be we went to a picnic, and in my head I would see the picnic and a picnic table, and it would be covered with a red, red cover. And then I would watch the video, and it would be covered in a blue cover. And I'd be right, because I took the memory that they told me about and made it my own, essentially. So I'm looking through all these videotapes, and I'm seeing all of these memories from my life in Australia that I actually don't have concrete memories for, because I was so young. And I was thinking about the way that you experience moving to a new country and living there, making your life there, meeting people there, and then coming back. And so I thought, why not look at the way that my mom experienced this, the way my dad experienced this, and the way that my brother experienced this, and then learn a little bit more about the human psyche and memory and how we view kind of like major life moments and how it's viewed based on where you are in time. Mostly because I just didn't have the memories, and I think I was just jealous that I like wasn't old enough to like really remember the time. So yeah, I sat them all down, and essentially the documentary is laced through before they left, while they were there, and then after they came back to the US. And it's funny because my mom and my dad's stories are very similar. It's kind of like my dad thinks about his job and leaving his job and what he's going to do in Australia because he couldn't move his job over. My mom was thinking about, okay, how am I going to restart this job in a new place and bring my family here? And then my brother...
And you were coming from in the States. You were coming from
Yes, yeah.
Whereabouts in the States were you?
So,
were you traveling from to Australia?
Yeah, so I was born in Michigan. I was born in Detroit, Michigan.
I didn't know that.
I know I have like a weird East Coast kind of like
Same.
Midwest thing. Yeah. So I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and my family moved from Michigan to Australia, and then back to Connecticut.
Got it.
Actually, I don't even think that's right. Let me say that one more time. There's so many. I think I was born in Detroit.
Yep.
Okay, I'll restart.
Yeah.
So I was born in Detroit. Then my family moved to Connecticut.
Got it.
We were there for, like, I don't remember that portion. I was like 2.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Australia for like 2-3 years. And then we came back to Connecticut.
Cool.
And then my middle school years, Connecticut.
Yeah.
I went to boarding school in upstate Connecticut. Went to college in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Moved to Boston.
Yeah.
Then after Boston, came to London.
Cool.
So that's my
Nice.
map.
Nice.
But yeah, so we moved from basically Connecticut to Sydney, Australia. And it's like a full, I think for me, I had friends, but I was 3. So
Yeah.
I didn't really care. I didn't really know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And the story that my mom tells is that my brother was like, we're not going, Christie. Like, we're going to make a plan. We're staying behind. Mom and dad are going, and we're going to stay here in Connecticut alone. And I was like, me being 3, I'm like, woo, awesome. Like, I would love to stay here. So yeah, I mean, I think it all came about where I'm super, super grateful for that experience, even though I was really young, because it really taught me that, and I think my family comes from a place of, they try to push us out of our comfort zones as much as possible.
It makes an impression on you. Yeah,
exactly. And they value kind of, experiencing as much as you can and new things. And I'm super lucky to have experienced that as well. Like I'm really grateful for that.
Cool.
And my mom's job moving her over there. So, the stories I have from it are really just like little kid things.
No, for sure.
Broke my arm.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I remember like running around in the backyard. And like lots of spiders and animals and things because we were in the suburbs.
Yeah,
so,
Australia's got different.
Yeah, lots of wildlife there. And then I actually ended up going back to Australia for my study abroad in college.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, I studied in Brisbane for 6 months.
Nice.
And again, did English literature, not even thinking about film.
Yeah, I was as well. In Providence College, I was English, yeah.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was.
Oh, okay, cool.
Totally, yeah.
I think there's a connection between, like, there's a lot of people who come from, like, English or history.
For sure.
And then they
go
move
into film.
This. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure, writing, and it's the first step.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's looking at stories and, like, obviously, like, longer prose. But I feel like... I guess,
creative writing. That was like a big step for me. Taking some basic creative writing courses.
Did you write like more longer prose, or were you more scripts?
No. I was writing stories at the time. Just messing around,
cool.
like trying to figure out what my voice was then. But definitely, I remember, and it was just I love the environment that the creative writing classes, because it would generally be less in the classroom and more like the teacher would get just a group of chairs and we'd sit in like a specific hall where you could be on a comfy chair and then share the stories that way, because I think everyone's a bit like nervous to share, something that they've written themselves for the first time. And you'd read aloud, and that was like, whoa, this is like different, sharing stories. So it's kind of like a mini version of what we did at LFS, which was like, you're bearing your soul, our cohort, you know each other so well. And it's just because you're sharing not only the written story in the script, but then you're visualizing it as well. And that's it's a very vulnerable place to be in the beginning.
Right.
And then you start to get used to it, and it's like much more comfortable. And that's what the grad films are so much better, because it's like you go through that DC process where we're making small little short films in term 1 and then kind of working all the way up. which I feel like leads us into like kind of
the perfect segue.
Yeah. I feel like because I've got a great idea of your past and kind of coming from IBM and how fun in some ways that was, but also difficult. But it sounds like you found that link in making the doing this one ad or this. It sounds like it was just like the spark for you. So you come to LFS, and we're all in the same cohort, going through with Raphael and Jonas in term 1 and 2, and I want to talk here a little bit about your experience in term 4, where you did you wrote and directed a term film. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? Just anything you remember from it.
Oh yes, I'll be really honest with all of the
because it's fantastic.
Members. Oh, thank you so much. I wouldn't say the same. I think. For me, so I wrote a short about a girl who gets trapped in the men's bathroom during a networking event and ends up having this like life conversation with a recruiter through the walls of the bathroom.
And the name of it
it's called Getting Ahead.
Yes, love it.
Like to be truly frank and honest with like your viewers and everyone listening, I had no idea what I was doing, and
I don't think any of us did. That's the fun of it.
I was really good at pitching because of IBM.
Yeah.
So I know how to sell a story really well. And the script originally started out as one thing, which I loved, and got turned and molded into something else. Because one of the major things that I learned from it was that you in making a film, you really have to trust yourself and you have to trust your vision. And if you take everyone's advice and you take everyone's thoughts and you take everyone's comments all the time, it really becomes a modge podge of different opinions rather than your own vision. So Getting Ahead for me was like my first massive failure, and I'm so thankful for it. So thankful that it just crashed and burned so hard for me. I think that
I don't know, not for me, but it's okay. It's I get it. Yeah. I think when you're making it from that level, like you see things might see things differently.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I think it's also you have as a filmmaker, you have, at least for me personally, you have this vision of the film in your head, and the way that it's going to turn out.
Yeah.
And then as it goes and gets molded down the line, it turns into something completely different, which usually would be amazing, and it takes a life of its own. But with Getting Ahead, I think it was one of those things where it was the first time I was learning to work with a crew that was working underneath me. It was the first time that I was learning how to block a scene as a director with 2 actors. The first time I was learning how to do camera and lighting and how to have a discussion with a DP and kind of talk through, okay, I see this setup this way and I think the characters are going to move this way, so we should put the camera here and maybe light it like this. But I didn't have the tools or the experience to have those conversations, basically. So truly, I feel like I was fighting for my life that whole time.
Yeah, you get thrown in the deep end, but that's how you learn the best sometimes, you know?
Exactly. I remember I went to a script conference, and I sat down, and basically at one point, I won't spoil it for you, but her foot gets stuck in the toilet.
Yeah.
And I remember my professor was kind of like, I don't really believe it. And I was like, let me tell you something. I also don't believe it, but I don't know where to go with it. So I'm not sure. That's
funny. That's being honest.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know where to know with it.
I thought it's a great beat because it is, you're kind of, it's a bit tricky because it's in the stall of a bathroom. So what type of storytelling can you do? So every little detail can be better. Yeah. And again, that's like a dramatic beat is like getting the foot stuck, comedic maybe, or whatever you want to say. Yeah. It was funny. It's funny.
As more of a comedy beat, which actually worked in the edit better.
Yeah.
And we got some laughs with that where originally the story, so as a filmmaker, I'm really based in coming of age, and I believe that coming of age can happen at any point in time in your life. You can have a coming of age at 85.
Yeah.
And so I've started from a place of where I'm at. So I'm in my late 20s now. And all my stories are based on, 20-something, 15-year-old something women, just because I have experience in that.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier for me to direct and write from that place at where I am in my career. And so in my head, I had written this story that was supposed to make you think about what you're doing with your life and why you're making the decisions you're making and if you're making them for yourself and not feeling like you need to rush into certain aspects of your life because you really do have time to make decisions on who you want to be and how you want to treat others and kind of what you want to do with your life. And it molded into just a showcase of how little I actually knew about film. I think in the end, what we did with it is it comes across in almost being there, but not quite. But I do think that one of the best parts about that is I had come from a place at IBM where I was doing really, really well for the age that I was at. I was getting good feedback, and I was so new in my career that you can only really go up at that point because there's only up to go when you're entry level. And then I got to film school and I sat on stage. How many people would you say are in crits?
It just depends. Probably 20 to 30 to 40, you know, it can range. Yeah. Would you say? I think so. Yeah.
I think so too. Like it basically in they sit you in the cinema, and you have your whole cohort there, which was for us was like 35
about something like that.
And then some people can come in from other cohorts and watch.
Yeah.
And then there's 8 industry experts, so directing, producing, cinematography, production design, all those. You watch the film, you get up on stage with your team,
HODs,
your HODs, and then you sit in silence and they give you feedback. And
it can be terrifying when you haven't had that experience before.
Yeah, it's terrifying. And genuinely, just like, because as you said earlier, like the films that you make, it's really like a showcase of your soul.
You can be quite vulnerable.
Yeah, super vulnerable when you're showcasing a film that you've created with a team. And I just remember one of the directing industry expert sat there and he was like, "So I'm sure someone else is going to say something nice."
Oh, damn.
And then he went on this tangent of just ripping me to shreds in front of everybody.
Eesh.
And then at the end, he was like, "I'm really sorry that I had to say all of that."
Wow.
And so at the end of that, like sat back down in my chair and was like, I am not supposed to be in film. I'm not supposed to direct. I'm not supposed to be in, I don't know how I got into the school. Basically just like it's almost just
mini episode.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like shaking.
Put it nicely.
And then
I think I've probably had a few of those as well.
Right? Like
mini episodes.
Makes it
sound really nice.
Yeah, you're fine. I think it was like a week of me just being like, I'm so sad for myself. Yeah. And then I was kind of like, no, but the only way to move up is to try again and to see. And like if as a filmmaker you do a job that other people don't like and it doesn't come across the way that you want it, then you learn from that and you do better next time. And like you can't expect yourself to know everything right off the bat, you know, like it's such a lifelong process of learning and watching other people and watching your favorite films and your favorite directors and kind of sharing that vision with them. And I honestly am so grateful for the whole film. I also had like amazing crew, amazing cast, so many great people backing me, so many great people working with me, sharing ideas. Like, I think from a directing standpoint, it comes off as me feeling like I didn't provide enough to the team, but what they provided to me was like amazing work. So for me, I think I went through taking feedback really, really harshly and really, really taking feedback harshly and directly to the soul, if you will, and then kind of turning around and saying, okay, feedback is something that is helpful for you to learn and grow as a filmmaker.
Yeah. You need it. You need to get some honest opinions, especially at this stage where we're learning a lot. You need to have, because it's not just all about what you're putting out there. You know,
right.
It's a when you're showing a film, it's definitely a conversation. So I think you put that really well, kind of that, and you took us through that thought process, which is great. And I think that what that thought process you just explained is what literally takes you to the next level. So that's really amazing. It's such a nice kind of portrait again of like your term for film. I'm wondering, because we're kind of moving from kind of past things into present. Do you have any other experiences from LFS that you want to share? Because I really want to talk about your grad film Girls Together, but I'm wondering if there's any other experiences before you got to the grad film that you'd like to talk about. Maybe editing experiences you've had. You know, you've done like you've edited several grad films.
I've edited multiple grad films, and then all in all, I think it's like 15 between like grad films, term films, documentaries, promos, music videos. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of like a modge podge of whatever I get my hands on.
Maybe you can talk about one other project that you really remember and enjoy before we start talking about your grad film, just to get a little bit more of a sense of kind of what you've been up to up until then.
Do you want an in-school project or an out-of-school?
You pick. You pick.
That's tough.
Maybe something that you felt like at the end of it, you felt really that you thought that you had done a good job and you had learned something. Maybe.
Yeah, cool. So in term 3, we shot a documentary that I edited, which was about a drag artist who basically like found their femininity through starting to do drag and become this persona named Charlize, who is absolutely fabulous and amazing. And I'm actually working on projects with Sheridan, but also known as Charlize now. Cool. So through this documentary, we looked at basically like what femininity means and what it means to feel feminine and to feel beautiful and to accept yourself. So what we did is we shot for, I think it was 3 to 4 days. We followed Sheridan through his childhood home with his mother. And then we watched him. And
did you do sound on this as well?
No, Mushi did sound on this.
Right. So you were editor,
and then
on set, like kind of.
Honestly, like I think on set for me was like I did the clapperboard, and then I didn't
consulting.
Yeah, it was almost like if I knew that we should get something for the edit, I would be like, hey, Ravenna, like maybe we try and do XYZ. Mm-hmm. But I mean, Ravenna's so talented. Like she knows what she wants, and she usually I've cut for her a few times, and she'll get what I need, and she like has a good vision with it. So I didn't have to step in too much. So really, set for me was super fun.
Cool.
Like I was kind of like AD/AC/ hanging out.
Yep. Continue. You're telling the story. Sorry, I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah. So we shot the documentary over 3 days. We shot with Sheridan and his mom in his childhood home. Then we shot the transition from Sheridan to the fabulous Charlize. And then we shot a photo shoot where Charlize got headshots taken, and we just got to see her personality come out. And we did voiceover, where Sheridan kind of talked about how becoming Charlize and finding Charlize allowed him to explore his feminine side and feel beautiful and feel confident, and just express another side of his humanity, essentially. So we had, I don't know how many hours of footage it actually turned out to be, but I would say like 4 days continuous shooting with these like 3 different arcs. And then we ended up shooting another photo shoot. So in the edit, I had 2 photo shoots, home life, and then transformation. But during the photo shoots, we also shot him transforming into Charlize. So as an editor, it's kind of like which transformation reflects this idea of becoming another version of yourself and showcasing this femininity. And connecting that to his home life and his mother and who he is there. How do you make those decisions as an editor with your director to showcase to the audience who this person is in the truest light? So I spent, I want to say a month, and I would come in at 9 a.m. and I would leave at 11 p.m. because I was honestly so involved in the story and I loved it so much and I was having such a great time cutting it that it was just something that felt natural to go in and rework sections, especially because we had these arcs that all felt a bit similar. So it was almost like, you know what, let me cut for the arc where Sheridan becomes Charlize in the photo shoot only. And then based on that, because it was a professional setting, maybe that doesn't tell us enough about what he's feeling while he's getting ready. So then I said, okay, well, we'll scrap that. We'll try something else. And we'll look at him becoming Charlize and putting on his makeup in his home with soft lighting, and see if that kind of gets across what we want to get across. So basically, by the end of it, I knew the footage in and out, as you showed as an editor, but it was just one of those projects that I will always hold close to my heart because I had such a fun time cutting it, and I felt so close to the material and so close to Sheridan as well. Like, he shared a lot with us, and he's such a fabulous person. And then we went into crits in term 3, sitting on the stage. And I remember I'd never gotten editing feedback before. Like, I knew I loved editing, and I knew that editing was something that kind of like set me on fire is not the right word, but I get it. I just kind of fall into it. And you, like, because you're also partly an editor as well. So it's something that when I begin to edit, I fall so far into the cut and into the story that I don't like see anything around me. And this is one of the projects that happened for me with. And I just got really, really positive feedback for the first time that I was on the right path from the editing panelists. So it was just a really nice boost to feel like this project was so close to my heart, and then also get outside feedback that the way that I had cut it and the way that me and Ravenna had worked together to arc the story worked for her. And she said, I think she said something about you cut it in a way that the audience trusts the entire story. Like, we trust to get to the next scene, and we're not waiting for anything, and we're not kind of, bored or whatever it is. And that, as an editor, if I can just disappear into the seams and you can watch the film and have a great time, that's perfect. Like, that's all I want to hear. So I think that was the first true success that I had with LFS and at least editing.
Yeah, that's well said. It is an editor. Yeah. That idea of like smoothing everything over in such a way, or like creating a feeling where it's just like you're like flowing with the emotions of it.
Yeah.
That's the key. That's the best editing. As opposed to having something that's like very visible. Depends on what you're working on, but it sounds like in that specific instance, like you nailed something. That's great to hear. And it's funny, that was your term 3, and boom, you go into term 4, which we just talked about.
Right, so go into term 4 and immediately get like ripped apart.
No,
so that is the ebb and flow.
Of film school for sure. Yeah. Great. So we've got 2 awesome projects you worked on while at LFS. I want to talk about Girls Together, your grad film. There's so much to talk about. It was such an exciting project to work on. I did location managing for it, which was so fun.
Greg was the best location manager of all time.
I really enjoyed it, and so fun looking at some of those locations for you, the beautiful fields and the home location, and it was just such a pleasure to work with you on that. And Sid was such a big part of it, and you had such a lovely crew all the way through.
I think we spent like a month going back and forth to
oh my God, we were everywhere. I know all of the different types of grass and how grass grows because you needed the tall grass, and it's like
when is it in season?
I know all of that stuff now, and but I get it, like all those little things, the length of the grass, all that stuff is very important for the feeling of running through the field now and watching the finished product. I totally get what you're going for there, with some of these sweeping shots and these beautiful. But can you tell us, without going too far down a rabbit hole, can you tell us about Girls Together? Can you tell us a little bit about the story?
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about just some of the big things that come to mind? I think maybe it's because it's such a big project and there was so much going on with it, maybe you can kind of start at the development stage and maybe working with Izzy on the writing of it. And from there we can kind of flow into the rest of it.
Perfect.
But
Yeah, so my graduation film was called Girls Together, and it is a short 15 to 16-minute film based on basically looking at girlhood and growing up with your 2 best friends and how sometimes your biggest heartbreak is with your best friends. And originally this wasn't even my first idea. I was going to do something about a love triangle and a whole thing. Yeah. And then I saw an article from an amazing photographer named Justine Kurland. And she, back in the early 2000s, would go from like different schools in the US and take girls and put them in these like wilderness settings and kind of make them like a band of runaways. And what she did was she was looking at the way that girls and teenagers were portrayed through a photographer's lens. and allowing them to be raw and real and boyish, really, like allowing them into a boy's space. And I was struck by this article, and I was struck by her photographs, and I wanted to see if I could find something like that in film. There's a few here and there, but a lot of female-based stories for childhood between the ages of, I want to say, like 10 to 18 are based in bra size, kissing a boy, and like your value being based in what beauty standards you meet in society. So with Girls Together, I met, I had a friend, Izzy Halpin, who's a fantastic screenwriter.
From the screenwriting department at LFS.
Yes, yep. And I had her start on this other film first. And then I walked in and I was like, I found an article. I want you to read it. And then I think that this is where we should jump off from. She was totally on board. And we took, I want to say, like 2 months to write this story together, about these 3 girls, Raina, Zepp, and Lauren, and how they have, basically they create this camp in the woods out of like old furniture from their houses. And they go spend their summer days in the woods together, just hanging out at this camp, mucking about, playing in ponds, running around. And it's like their oasis. It's where they can really be themselves. When we started it out, it was 30 pages. And we're trying to make a short film here, guys. Like, we got to cut like 20 of these out. We ended up cutting multiple characters, which I would love to bring back at some point.
Yeah.
But we really focused in on our main character, Raina, being stuck between the time in life when you are playing with your friends outside and you don't even consider that anything is, happening in the future, that any of this would ever change. And then the time in life where maybe you actually want something to change. Maybe you want to grow up a little bit and try something new and meet someone new, and how you make that decision when your friends aren't there yet in childhood. So essentially the arc follows that, and then there is a hurt animal that they all find, which you'll have to watch to find out what it is.
You know what I just saw? I just saw a bird yesterday. Andrea Arnold's
I haven't
film.
seen it.
There's I can't say it.
Is it gonna ruin it?
I can't say it. Continue.
Okay.
Continue.
I'll have to go watch it.
Yes, and we can have a follow up chat.
Yeah, okay.
We can have a follow up chat.
Okay, super excited. I love her film. So,
The fox. You're talking about the fox.
The fox. Yes.
Yeah.
So no, I wasn't gonna say it was a fox.
Just
cut it out. Cut it out.
The animal. Yeah, cut it out. All right, back up.
Yeah.
Continue.
Okay, so there is Greg ruined the film.
Spoiler.
Just muffle it out.
Yeah.
Just have like beeps. Yeah.
There's a beep. A what?
You guys didn't hear that.
That's funny.
Yeah, so there's, in the film, these 3 girls, basically, we arrive at camp, is what we call it. They end up stumbling across a hurt animal, and through the course of the film, they are trying to save this animal, but in turn, they are also kind of trying to save their friendships. So you have to see what happens with that, but that is the base of the story, and it really came about because I didn't see the representation of my childhood friendships with my girlfriends on screen. And it felt like even when they were on screen, they didn't get to fall into a place of, honestly, like honest realism and how we used to interact with each other. Like, I think there are parts of girlhood where you sit down and you're kind of like, okay, let's all write down like let's all rate our features. I experienced that in girlhood. I understand that. But then the majority of what we would do is make mud pies in like a bowl. And then like I think me and my childhood friends like tied a bunch of string around my house once, which I like,
love it.
I don't know what we're doing, but apparently we're having fun.
Kids.
Yeah, exactly. So showcasing that type of raw friendship. And then I'm a huge fan of betrayal. I eat betrayal up. I love it. I think that if you can sucker punch someone while they're watching a movie, you've done your job. So maybe don't watch things if you don't like to be sucker punched. Mine. But I think that it just, those moments of bottoming out in life, when everything that you thought was real and everything that you thought was valid, like your belief system gets taken away from you. I think those are the core moments of a coming of age story where you have to pivot. you have to pivot out of that moment in life onto the next one, and the world, the circumstance, your friend, your family, whoever it is pulling the rug from underneath you, or self-sabotage, you do it to yourself. So I think those moments are kind of what I look for in developing a film, and what I did in a very soft manner, I think, in Girls Together. Yeah, I think that's like the origin of it.
Cool. Very cool. That's amazing. So I've got a little sense of the writing process, some of the themes present in the film. Can we talk a little bit about? Again, I was location manager for it, so we were looking for a lot of the setting for the film is in the countryside, meant to be. We were
end of summer.
But did it end up being in the UK? UK feeling?
based
Yeah,
film.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So my question is a little bit about. I think maybe we can talk a little bit about the production. I think that's
Sure.
a key aspect. Can you tell me a little bit about something you remember from the production? I know there were ups and downs with some of the aspects of it. Just curious, like now, like looking back.
Yeah.
Like what your thoughts were. I know it's kind of tricky too. But I just love to hear kind of your assessment of it, I guess, and just what you're thinking now that you're looking back.
Yeah, I mean, I had an amazing producing team with me.
Yeah.
Greg was fantastic
Yeah.
Greg was fantastic on location managing.
Thank you.
And I had Sid Menon and Meg Habaduri and Sylvia Micelli. So that was my big production team. And each producer had their own role. So Sylvia was on our social media, doing our Kickstarter, getting the money going. Sid owned the budget, and then he was like the high level line producer, so he was making sure everything was getting done. And then Megha, who I literally owe my right and left arm to, was the on the ground with me every day, calls every day, meeting me every day, just checking everything off every list. And then Greg is the reason that we have locations. Like, I think for me, coming off of my Term 4 film and having producers on that who were fantastic, but I wasn't aware of the ins and outs of what needed to get done, I took that example and moved towards a place of, okay, here's a spreadsheet with everything that I think that we need. Everybody, as an HOD for your own section of production, add in, like what you think we should do, what date we need to do it by, how we need to get it done, who owns it. So kind of taking project management skills and then what I didn't do with getting ahead and trying to do that for Girls Together. Awesome. And so on the location side, I knew I needed a forest, a field, and a house and a car. Very easy, Greg. Go find those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also was very aware that I was asking for a lot. But it was one of those things where you and Sid together were really good about being like, okay, we're going to meet on Tuesday. Let's talk about what type of field. Like, what location is reflecting the character's inner struggle? What location is reflecting where she's going? So we were looking at trying to use a field with longer grass. But one of the things we ran into was we realized that farmers
like to
cut their grass, which we didn't look that up beforehand, which is fine. And we found that out like on site. I think we went in July and they cut the grass in August, and we were going to shoot in September. So a few of those we would, Greg was amazing. He would email farmers. He would email location managers from like different companies and just be like, this is what we're looking for. These are the dates that we're looking for it. And either they'd come back and say, yes, it's $5,000 million, or they'd say no. And then you have to move into like this negotiation phase. And I think one of the things that I would take away from at least like locations and trying to figure out production is you really need to use your student card, and you really need to use your personality, which Greg is fantastic at talking to people. So because he has a podcast, right, guys? So like, it was great having you on because you would form these connections with people, and then they would say, okay, well, maybe we can't do it for 500, but we can do it for 300. And then we would move from those places, which I think in hindsight now, having honest and open conversations with people about why you're making the film and how much your budget is, and asking, is there anything that we can provide for you in order to get this location for a lower cost or whatever it is. And just like ask the question. Like
Yeah.
you're never going to be able to know unless you ask the question, and asking you, what's the saying? Asking you receive.
Shall receive, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're both like butchering it. It's fine. Asking you shall receive. So that was on the location side. I think that was one of the major things. And then honestly, production wise, because the film was so big and so many locations, and I think all in all we had 55 cast and crew members working on it at different times. Sorry. We were in like, it was a full-time job. It was constant conversation. It was by the end of pre-production, the week before the shoot, my cinematographer Max cutting, my production designer Sway, and then my producer Meka, they came to my house for literally a full week, I think. And it was just every single evening coming over, talking about
building things, working on things.
We built a well together out of paper mache.
Yeah.
I didn't. Sway did that, and Grandma Hair did that on my back porch while they listened to, I think it was a song from the SpongeBob episode. They're like having a fun time, like doing paper mache, and me, Max, and Meka are trying to figure out all this stuff with the schedule and our AD Aaron. But that, having said all of this, those are my fondest memories.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I cherish so much, because when else do you get to get with your friends and shoot a film together where the budget kind of comes from school and Kickstarter and things like that? Like, I think as much as it is a grueling process and it is a lot of project management, it's so creative and it's so fun to hear everyone's ideas and thought processes, that you cherish it on the outside.
Yeah.
I think when you're in it, you're very stressed out because you want it to go well.
Yeah.
But from the outside looking back, I definitely feel like almost pre-production and being on set, of course, were my favorite parts of the experience.
Do you have any memories from being on set?
Yeah, of course.
Do you have one you could share?
Yes. So I had some really, really talented actresses with me.
Yeah.
Our lead cast was Faye Davies, Harriet Robertson, and Anya Silla. They were fantastic at receiving feedback, working with me, owning their characters, and building out a world for them. And of course, these three girls had never met each other before the film. So first day of set, they all come on set. We're scrambling to do a bunch of shots. It starts raining in the middle of the day.
Of course.
Then it gets sunny again. So we're like, what the heck are we doing? And we ended up on time, and everything was good. And that, I guess it's not an on-set memory, but and a memory from set is I got a text message from Faye after the first night of shooting. And I'm DITing in the hotel, and they're kind of staying on location. And it's a photo of the three girls, and Anya had moved her mattress. They had like heisted the mattress from the other room and brought it into their room so they could have a slumber party for like the entirety of set. And I get this photo of them, and they're watching, I'm pretty sure they're watching, it was either Pitch Perfect or Mean Girls.
Wow.
And they send it to me, and they're like, we heisted the mattress from Anya's room and brought it in. So Anya's sleeping on the floor in between the two girls'
living
beds.
out the movie.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
And I think the on the cast side, that was my favorite memory. But on the crew side, it genuinely was, there was so much that we were shooting, and everybody had such a great attitude about it. And we did shoot outdoors the entire time.
Yeah.
Which makes for a little bit harder of a set, getting equipment everywhere, making sure lighting's set up, things of that nature.
It was summer, right?
Early September.
Early September. Okay, yeah. So still
Basically
pretty warm.
Yeah.
Still pretty warm out.
Yeah. Another really exciting part of set on Girls Together was we did have live animals who are principal cast. They are actors. Blossom and Honey from a really great animal acting agency.
The two foxes. Yeah.
Sorry, yes. Should I start that over so I say they were fox?
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
So we had two foxes on set, Blossom and Honey. And we were doing a shot where basically this fox comes around the side of a car. Our main character, Raina, sees the fox, and then some other very special things happen that I will not spoil. But the fox handlers come up to me and they're like, okay, have you worked with animals before? And I said, no, I have not. This is my first time as a director. And they said, all right, you have 3 takes before they're done, because they're live animals. And of course, like, we want to make sure that they feel safe, and there's no harm that comes to them. And I said, okay, great. And they're like, what would you like Blossom to do? And I said, literally walk by the car and take a right. You can't communicate that to a fox, of course. And so what they did was they had it on a lead the entire time, a wire lead, and they dropped little bits of like food in like the arc that they were hoping the fox would go on. And so essentially what happened was, first take, fox stands there, doesn't do anything. Second take, fox comes in a shot and then comes out a shot. And I was like, oh my God, please, dear Lord. Third take, fox comes into shot, walks, stops, looks at something that we needed it to look at, which I didn't even think we were going to get. Then we get a nice little lens flare in there with the setting sun, and then it trots off to the right. And I was like, oh my God, we did it. We got it. And then, of course, the sun's setting. We have like 3 more shots to get for the day. So I'm like, okay, moving on, like all this stuff.
Great.
Yeah, so it was a challenge, but it was really cool to have an animal actor on set and to work with an animal, and to also like have the team work with an animal too. Like our cinematographer Ravenna had to make kissing noises at it, so it would like kind of look around a little bit.
Ravenna was
cam up.
Cam up. Cool.
And then, you know, Rodolfo was our focus puller, so pulling focus on a live animal as it's moving. I think it was a really great way to incorporate this motif that I really love, and I have a special love for foxes. Yeah. And then also getting to work with a different type of principal cast. I will say that my heart can't take it, so I don't think I will be working with animals in the future.
Fair enough.
But I'm really, really thankful to the company and everyone for working so well with them together, and they were super cute. Yeah. Super cute animals. So it didn't work out, but it was really exciting.
Cool. Okay, awesome. That's I love the anecdote. I love it sounds like it was just a super exciting set with lots of really awesome people.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about post-production for Girls Together.
Yeah.
So you get all this amazing footage. You've got this kind of really, really awesome idea for a story. What was the post-production process like? Can you talk about anything that comes to mind? What editing it was like? Yeah, just curious. You know, it's sometimes you don't really hear about that stuff, you know, because that's kind of when we're dissecting things. So
right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Whatever you'd like to say.
Yeah. So I had an assistant editor with me. So I am an editor and a director, so I like to edit my own films, much to the chagrin of my producer Sid, who said that I should not do that. But I have a really specific vision when I go into shooting, because I know how I want to cut it, but I also like to leave a little bit of room to play. So I had an assistant editor named Parker Donaldson, who's fantastic.
Nice.
My thought process with it was that I wanted to separate myself from post for a little bit because we had just come off set. So I actually gave him all the footage, all the drives. I said, set it up, do a first cut, and just like, let's see what happens. Because I figured if I had done the first cut, I would have been too close to the footage. I would have been too close to what we did on set and all that jazz. So what I did was I had him come over once a week, every week until our final deadline. And he would cut, and then we would cut together for like a few days. The one thing I think when you're on set and you're in it and you're watching the performances, I don't know if this is the right way to do it. I don't know if there is a right way. I tend to watch my performances like not through the monitor, and I find myself watching the faces of my actresses and all. Okay, yeah. So I just feel like I can capture the emotion better that way. But the problem with that is that I'm seeing it I'm next to the camera, but if the camera's, which it was moving a lot we had a very fluid camera for Girls Together. I'm not always seeing what the camera's seeing. I'm seeing what I'm seeing, right? So in my head, I was like, okay, great. So we got this shot, this shot, this shot. And then look at the monitor. I'm like, okay, framing's nice, like it. And then I'm sucked into their performance because I want to give notes. when you get into post and you're seeing it from the point of view of the camera, where they always say stand by the camera if you can, I realized that what I thought I had gotten and what I pictured in my head wasn't actually what we had. Not in a negative way.
Yeah.
It's just different.
It's different.
Exactly. Because the way that it was shot, it's beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
I'm really, really happy with it. It was just one of those things where I was like, okay, I need to recalibrate how I pictured the edit. So the first thing that I usually do in an edit is I'll cut for the script, and I'll cut it exactly the way the script says, exactly the way we shot it, and look for like our best takes, all that jazz. And then from there, because this is like indie filmmaking, school filmmaking, I love doing weird stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, we could move a scene here, move a scene there, try starting it like this. So
yeah. Refresh it,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I wasn't happy with the way that I had blocked one of our scenes, and I knew it on set too.
Yeah.
I was watching it and I was like, I don't like this, but I can't, we don't have time. So in post, I was trying to cut around that scene.
Sure.
And it was taking away from the character's emotional arc, and it was taking away from the audience's understanding of what was happening in the scene and why it would make sense later. And for our first round of critiques, I did remove that scene, and it was basically the whole opening of the film I got rid of.
Yeah. And
I was like, I'm just going to cut it all down. I'm going to take out everything, make it short. And the reason it worked in my head is because I had the context of set. I had the context of the script. I had the context of knowing the characters really well. Nobody watching the film had that context. Nobody watching the film knew what happened 5 minutes before the film started. So the feedback was that, basically. It was them saying, I just want to hang out with these girls, and I want to watch them hang out. And we don't have that. We have them saying that they're going to hang out, but we don't watch them hang out. So against all fiber of my being, I was like, okay, we'll bring back the beginning. And I got really great feedback from a filmmaker named Ellie Rogers, who is fantastic. And she said to me that she'd watched a lot of great short films that had really, really bad openings, but really, really great endings. And all that matters is the feeling that you're left with. So with that ringing in my ears, I brought back the beginning of the film, which made it longer. And I ended up actually cutting out a section in the middle by suggestion of my producer, Sid, which tightened up the film so much more. So in reality, my being super close to it and cutting it like this, I think I was trying to remove an aspect that felt inauthentic to me.
Sure.
But I had just removed the wrong one.
Yeah.
And by the end, with working with Parker, with working with Sid, with getting feedback from people on how the edit and the characters felt for other people, I was able to remove the section that felt inauthentic, but keep the girls hanging out and the girls having their rituals and introducing them together. So cool. I think it is really like an ebb and flow. Yep. I would love to talk about the score.
Yeah.
If I can.
Yeah.
Because the score of this short, scored by David Kane, was honestly what made me love it. Yeah. Like I was cutting and I was cutting and I was cutting and I was removing and I was bringing things back and I was like, it's not working. And then it got to a place where I was like, okay, the edit's tight. I like it. But it's sitting in a place of girlhood that I didn't want to sit it in. Yeah. It's sitting in Disney Channel. Yeah. And if I had gone the route of a classical score, piano, violin, then we would have had quite literally showing at 8 p.m. Disney Channel, pop it on. Nothing's wrong with that. I love those movies, but it's not where I wanted to go with it. And so David came along, and he was in Kent at the time, and I was in London, and we had 6-hour FaceTimes where he would play something through his keyboard, whatever it was, and I would listen. And God bless him, I cannot speak composer. Yeah. So I would hum something to him. And I would be like, what if we went la di 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 da? And he was like, Christy, yeah, sure, we could try that. Cool. So anyway, we went into this world of, we brought in organs, which were super weird. We brought in a ton of synth. Yeah. And we wanted to come from the keyword of an ethereal base. Because I think what you're seeing on screen is just the girls running around together and truly just interacting with each other. But the score needed to come from Reina's headspace, our main character's headspace. and it needed to feel like almost like the way that she views the world is what we're hearing, which then separates the film. It gives it another layer, essentially. And it sits the audience in a different place than where they expect to be sat.
Yeah.
And David did a fantastic job. My favorite scene is of Raina walking across the field as the sun's setting behind her. It's super purple, dark, and she's taking out her hair. And we have these like super ethereal, deep, bassy beats with like a little high note coming across. And it just, in cinema, if you listen to it, it envelops the audience essentially, and you can feel her melancholy and you can feel her sadness while she's in this huge expanse of nature. And it really does kind of put her in this void. And David just came up with that himself and played it for me. I think I like shed a tear. I was like, you're so talented.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, I think throughout all of post-production, it really is an area of trial and error in short films. Mostly because we're all still learning so much that you're going to make multiple mistakes, and you're going to go into the edit and you're going to try and cover them. Like, I strongly believe a lot of short films in post-production is covering the mistakes.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to describe it. Yeah, I think it takes some of the edge off of like feeling like you need to be perfect in production.
Right. Exactly.
You don't really, I mean, it's all magic trick kind of at the end of the day anyways. And it's a lot of effort that goes into it, and it rolls along regardless. As soon as I think you get the idea you want to make a film, and you take the training you've got, you write the best thing you think you can offer,
right,
and you go on your way, and then you're going to have something at the end, and that's the fun of it.
Yeah.
And that's the learning experience, you know? It's great. No, you're really describing the process in a way I think that's like I haven't heard before, which is great.
Yeah, I think for me as well, it's one of those things where this starts off as an idea in my head, but I have borrowed this from Greta Gerwig, because she says to her team that whatever HOD role, whatever role you have in the film that's your piece of the film, right? Like, your expertise is going to make this piece of the film 40,000 times better than I could do, because I don't know that. I don't know the ins and outs of production design. I don't know how to score a film. So if you can take your section of the film and make it yours, and then work with the rest of the team to blend this together into like the best blueberry pie of all time, then that's perfect. That's all I can ask from a team. But yeah, I think the post-production process is just baking the cake. It's really
no, that's a great way. That's totally the way I would describe it as well. Yeah, I actually think once you finish shooting, you got to give it a little time to rise. That's your dough.
Yes.
And then you stick that shit in the oven, and then that's like I don't know. It's a tricky way of describing it, but yeah, there's definitely a baking analogy somewhere in there.
Right. You take it out too soon.
We got blueberry pies, we got bread, we got the whole thing. Yeah, it really is though. It's that simple, and that's the fun of making anything. You know, whether it's a fucking blueberry pie or a film. Like there's something really fun about because a film is a bit more complex than a blueberry pie usually. But it doesn't have to be.
Some crazy blueberry pie.
Yeah.
Or really simple film.
I have two more questions. I want to talk to you about, and I'll just move like from the production one to the post-production one. Cool. Can you talk about the production design and working with Sway Zhu for that? Because I think that's probably one of the more, because it goes along with the photography, the photograph book, and the photographer being
Justine Kurland.
Those reference ideas are really beautiful, and I think you translated them in a very amazing way to the film. And can you talk about what the idea was there? I know Stand By Me was a reference for the film. I'm wondering, just talk a little bit about discussing that with her, because it's pretty beautiful and it's pretty unique, and I really like it. So
I think Sway Zhu is my production designer for Girls Together. She is an insane talent. She is one of the people that I hope to work with forever, because I was able to explain what I thought, and she was able to put that down into a visual design. So from Justine Kurland's photography, that was more of like our cinematography base, because what she did was there was no real, like, there were some tents, maybe some tarps, maybe a broken down car. It was very grungy.
Yeah.
And in my head, I wanted to give these girls a space of like magical realism, essentially, where we had like a couch made of tires, which Sway came up with. We had a lamp and an old VHS TV that didn't work. And there were umbrellas hanging from the trees and a cowboy boot with flowers in it. And all these little mementos and design bits where each piece of it represented a girl. So what I did with Sway, I remember our first meeting was I knew I wanted her on the team originally. And I'd never worked with her before. And I brought the idea to her. And I was like nervous to talk to Sway. I was like, look, I have this idea. I think it's going to be really creative, production design wise. I want your input. And would you want to work on it? And so I brought her the book. And I did a verbal, basically, idea of like what I was thinking with this tree. And then as indie filmmakers do, I went on Pinterest. And I said, tree fort.
Cool.
And pulled some like random ideas and thoughts and kind of circled a little bit of those, being like, I like this, but this maybe isn't real enough. And then Sway took like maybe a few days, came up with this sketch, and it was essentially as if she had like taken what was in my brain and sketched it. And I was like, how did you do that? So working with her was amazing from the first day, where it was kind of me being like, I like this, and then her creating this camp for the girls. Which is basically like, we have a really big tree. There's a couch, 2 chairs. Each seating space is represented by a girl. And then there's like a little seating space behind next to the tree. And at one point, I think we had like a bed frame. But that was a little bit too hard to carry into the woods. So with Sway, we kind of worked through, what does each piece in this location mean for each girl? Because it has to mean something. We can't just put stuff in there for the fun of it. And then what prop houses can provide those pieces / what prop houses have something else that we didn't consider originally. And we had like looked at different couches, but we also needed to consider, you know, the story world. So do they bring all this stuff out there in the beginning of the summer and they leave it the whole time? Or do they bring it out for a week in the summer and they only spend a week there and then bring it back inside? And I was of the vein where they bring all new stuff every summer and recreate the camp in different ways every summer. And then they bring it in at the end. So for example, we thought, okay, if we are going to have a couch, it can't be something that's going to be out in the summer the entire time and not get moldy and disgusting and fall apart. And then Sway said, well, why don't we use tires? And I was like, okay, perfect. The girls would roll those into the woods. Easily found in like junkyards or like maybe dad has some extra tires, pop those off the car. I don't know. And then they can get wet. It can stay there the whole time.
Cool.
It's practical.
Yeah.
And it's fun and it's weird. And these characters are fun and weird. Yeah. So like I could see Zepp and Raina being like, wait, what if we try this? And then Lauren's like rolling them down the hill and chasing after them.
Cool.
So Sway was fantastic at coming up with different ways to set up these ideas. And we had another section of the fort, which was a dining room table, and each girl had their own chair. And it was kind of like where they have their meetings, essentially. So Sway would send me photos of chairs, and we'd be like, do we think that the circular design on here is reflecting what Raina's feeling? Because something's coming full circle. These are all things that no one really is going to think about when they watch the film.
Cool.
But me and her had such a fun time, at least from my perspective, that, you know, adding these little pieces in will just reflect on screen in some way.
Yeah. Subconsciously or however. Yeah. That's the key.
Yeah, exactly. And then one of the things as well that we looked at was having a door in the middle of the woods where the girls would they had the opportunity to walk into camp any way they wanted, but they would choose to go through this door. And I think it represents the choice of staying in childhood and staying in this place of fun and staying in the imaginary with each other. So that was something that actually came later down the line. We didn't have the door originally. And that was Sway as well. She found this really cool blue door and was like, look what I found. So I think that her ability to understand a director's vision and make that come to life, but also add add little bits and pieces of her own ideas and her own work and understand the text in that way is honestly fantastic and astounding. I would suggest every director's work.
Nice. That's a sterling review.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. Hey, girl.
I love it. I love it. My next question is about sound design.
Yeah.
And I'd just love to hear a little bit about working with Matt Carlson and what that experience was like. I know you guys were like hard at work for quite a while. And I think you've got really great sound design. So I'm curious what that collaboration was like.
So we did 2 versions of sound design. The first version was for school, which was with Matt Carlson. And we basically kind of sat in the basement of school on Pro Tools and ripped different songs from different places, thought about different calls for this like fox that they needed to hear in the woods. And just kind of like building a soundscape where we didn't have a vision for one and we only had a week to do it. So Matt and I sat in the basement.
And Matt's another London Film School grad. Sorry, I should have prefaced with that. But yeah, you were in the LFS basement working on the sound design.
Working on the sound design together. And it was super funny because we would just like bounce off each other and think about different ideas. And I would like play a song and try to be like, does this fit here? And he'd be like, I don't know if that fits there. And it was a really, really great experience because it allowed me to figure out what I wanted from the sound design in like a preliminary space. Cool. And then move on to our final sound design with John Green, who we actually found on Instagram. Cool. So we put a call out for sound designers, and John said that he could design and then also do our mixing at Voiceover Soho. Great. Which was fantastic. And he is unbelievable. I'm saying this about my whole crew, but I genuinely do mean it. One
of the many qualities of a good director is, I think, finding... It's part of it, yeah. It's part of it.
Helps to be surrounded by super talented people, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think we're really lucky like that. Or driven people, you know? I think we just love it so much. But yeah, so John came on board. I kind of took him through what I was thinking, which is basically when we're in the woods, in the beginning half of the film, we want it to be idyllic and lots of bird sounds, lots of... basically envelop with the way that the girls move around each other is very circular. So like they've enveloped their lives around each other. So we want to envelop the woods around them from a soundscape point of view. And then as you move through the film, you start to lose the sound of the birds. You start to lose the sound of the wind. You start to hollow out the woods and you make them a little bit, not eerie, but just a little less comforting and full, which is reflecting which reflects how Raina feels about the situation. So John and I did a few rounds of like almost thinning out the soundscape towards the end. And then there's a fight scene. And in the fight scene, me and him went back and forth thinking like, should we put music in here to elevate this? Is it better to not have any music and maybe actually bottom out the sound a little bit so it's just these voices echoing the woods? And we felt that music was telling the audience a little bit too much about how to feel about this moment. So he did this really great thing where there's a line of dialogue where we just remove basically all of the bird sounds and it's just a tiny bit of wind and these girls fighting in the woods that they once loved and that are now very cold. So our sound design was very natural in the way that it was just showing you what's on screen. And all of the little things that we did were very subtle in the way that we just had to almost take away something from the audience without them noticing until the beat is so hard that they actually realize it when the next cue comes in. Cool.
So would you say one of the keys with the sound design was kind of a subtleness?
Yeah.
Because I would think being outside, you know, especially if it's meant to be kind of September or summertime, like louder kind of sounds. Especially, it's interesting, like it's so funny, like in mine, I had a sound designer that was living in India. And the first run through of the sound design was because the film was meant to be kind of in a forest setting in the middle of nowhere, and it was sounds of a forest in India, and I was like, these are birds, and
you're like,
wait,
this
is not the UK.
Where are we?
I get where you're coming from, but it's like it's a different thing. So it's I think sometimes it's funny depending on who your sound designer is, like how they feel about it. but yeah, that's I think that's a cool choice, is to, with outdoor stuff. For me, I'm thinking, oh, there's, especially in the summer, it's going to be louder with different birds and things like that. But to quiet it down a little bit, it's nice.
And I think if you take a look at the opening scene of the girls at the camp with like the bird sounds and all that stuff, it is really idyllic. And then if you cut to the fight scene, you just don't hear any of that anymore. So it's like if throughout the course of the film, they're
kind of focusing in on just what they're saying and not so much about all this everything. Yeah, cool.
Exactly.
That's
and
a
then
great choice.
There's a final shot in there where it's the empty camp, and I kind of broke the law with putting in some like American mourning doves sounds of those. They're super subtle. I don't think people hear them, but for me as a filmmaker, it connected me to that scene, and I don't know if it would connect a full audience from the UK, or if you can even really hear it, to be honest.
Well, you're adding I mean, at the end of the day, you were born in the States, and I think maybe lived a lot of your life there. So yeah, to add little bits and moments that connect. I mean, you're part of the writing process, so it's like it makes sense to add little things touches that take you back to where you're from. You know what I mean? I think that's important.
But I think honestly, for me, like sound design is huge, and I have done a bit of sound design work prior, but I do think moving forward, I'll probably try and work with screenwriters to write more sound design into pre-production. Yeah,
so you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
You know what you want the sounds to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, scripts are funny because they do leave out a lot. And it's always key. I think, again, this is so great about making films and being at school, is that you'll take that, and that's going to make the next thing you work on really that much better, and more yours. Like, everyone has a little bit of a different path with that. Someone else might be like, I don't really need that, but for your kind of method, that's what you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. That's the fun of the movies, is that there's so many different types of movies and ways of telling the story. And we're not even, I still feel like we're in the Stone Age as far as like film storytelling. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like all your favorite films. Like it's fun to think about what movies are going to be like in 20 years from now or 50 years from now. It's going to be completely different.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting. That's all you need to want to make the next one, in my mind.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's getting people together the way that you are with this podcast, and getting people together and just being like, do you guys want to go on Saturday and just like shoot something?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be, like, I think that the one thing that I've really, really learned as well is it doesn't have to be this huge production with so many people and the best cameras and all that stuff.
Nope.
It can be renting out a camera for 30 pounds, grabbing like a few friends, and like turning your flat into, I don't know, bar scene, whatever it is. And just shooting for fun. Yeah. Shooting to flex the creativity.
Yeah. On a weekend. Yeah. I really like that sentiment. Christie, I feel like I got like a really, really nice idea about your grad film Girls Together. Thank you so much for sharing some aspects of that film. I've been wanting to talk about kind of like whatever you want to call it, the postmortem, or kind of like the after the film has kind of been complete.
Yeah.
And I wish you the best at festivals and all that good stuff. I think we're in the same boat where we're kind of waiting to kind of reveal where we can share the film and all that stuff. So we can have a follow-up conversation at some point about all that good stuff, because definitely good things are happening there. So with kind of rounding out the podcast, I like to talk about the future and what's coming up. So I'm curious, you recently reached out to me because it sounds like you've got a 16mm project you might be shooting on film soon, which is super exciting, and I want to ask you about that. And then from there, what you're interested in doing in the future. I think we've got a really great idea as far as your editing, but very curious to see where you go as a director and what other types of stories. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about what you have coming up.
Yeah. It's super funny. So basically I finished up on Girls Together, needed a break, I think, from directing for a little bit. Was just kind of like, all right, I got to take a step back.
Let it sink in.
Yeah, let it sink in, enjoy post. And then I actually had a DOP reach out to me named Ollie Dahman, and he DM'd me on Instagram and was like, hey, I want to look into more narrative work. Do you want to shoot something together? And so I was like, awesome. I am the type of person who needs someone to put a fire under me to start something. And if I have someone that I know wants to work on something, I'll dive into it.
Yeah.
And he was like, I have some free time coming up. So I kind of hit the ground running. We had a meeting on it, and he said that he had a 60 millimeter camera, and would be open to shooting in like anamorphic if we could get it.
Wow.
But obviously expensive. So basically what we had talked about was what could we do with 60 millimeter film, and what is a short story, 2 characters, 1 location that would warrant being shot on film. So what I like to do when I develop scripts and ideas is I either go for a really long walk while I listen to scores, or I go for a run. And then while I run, ideas pop into my head. And usually it's like little vignettes of things.
Yeah.
So like I'll see a shot. I'll see a bit of a scene. I'll hear some dialogue, something like that. So I had actually just seen The Outrun with Saoirse Ronan. And
gotta see that. Yeah, it's on the list. You liked it?
Loved it.
Oh, great.
I loved it. I thought that the way that they portrayed anxiety and, you know, struggling with your internal battles while setting it against a massive backdrop in Orkney, Ireland, was fantastic. So I was listening to that score. And then also the score of Close, which is one of my favorite movies by Lucas Stone.
I know. You love it.
I love Close.
You love it.
And thinking about this idea of how do you come to terms with grief if you lose someone at a younger age, like in your 20s, and how does that mourning process look different from maybe like a family? And do people reach out to you? Do people talk to you? Or are they more focused on the family? Like, how do you move forward from that? And thinking about how many films actually showcase that and that experience. So I reached out to a screennamer.
Cool.
What's that? I reached out to a screenwriter named Shabani Rantham, who also went to LFS.
Yeah, of course.
And I shot her this beat sheet that I had written in my notes app while I was walking through London.
Cool.
And I was like, it doesn't have an arc. It doesn't have anything. I have 2 characters. I have the ending scene of how I want to shoot it.
Yeah, cool.
I know I want to be similar to either being on the top of a cliff or on the seaside. And juxtaposed in this moment in time right after a funeral. With a younger adult, with a 20 to 23 year old adult, and looking at the loss of a best friend and the part of you that you lose when you lose someone, because you lose who you are with that person as well. And I prefaced all of that by saying that that's a lot to put into a film, but here's all the ideas.
Sounds very beautiful.
Yeah, so it basically follows, as of right now, it follows 2 childhood best friends. Of course, I love it.
Yep.
And in the hours after and the days after the funeral of her best friend, a girl named Willow goes on a hunt to find a time capsule that they had buried together.
Very cool.
To open at 30.
Yeah. But
she's like 26. So the idea kind of runs through this path of their emotional relationship together. Why they did this time capsule box, what's inside of it, what is she looking for, and then coming to terms with the loss of someone and having like the final words from that person be written on this piece of paper that you know you can open, but you also promise not to open it till you're 30. So do you wait? Do you open it?
No, that's layered. I like that.
Yeah, so it's
super nice.
We're trying to figure it out still, but
beautiful.
We've got quite a few things going on with it, and I think it just, again, looking at the bonds of friendship, and the bonds of people and human psyches and how we deal with the loss of someone, right? And
it's not easy.
Yeah, and it's less about coming to terms with grief and accepting it, because I don't think that that's really the case. I think it's holding space for that and holding space for the person that you've lost.
For sure. In a short too, you have to be careful with what you're spanning, because grief, I think, is something that can be long lasting. So in a short, it's like maybe a specific portion of or part of that process, you know. But wow, it sounds really promising. What's the name of that film? Do you have a name?
It's called The Untitled Grief Project for right now.
Cool.
So we don't have a name. We, funnily enough, which I think
Untitled Grief Project.
Yeah.
Ooh.
We had written a version of it that had included ammonites. Do you know what those are? It's like the fossils that
open up?
come in the rock. Yeah, and they open up.
Very cool.
And it's this whole spiral and looking at the golden circle, all this stuff. So we wrote.
Oh, very cool.
Poor Shivani wrote an entire script. I'm reading it. I'm like, I love this. It's going in the right direction. It makes sense. The girls are pieces of this. And then I'm like, maybe I should just check and make sure that there's no films out there that have done this. Literally 2020, a film called Ammonite.
Damn.
Set on a cliffside in like 1980s UK with Saoirse Ronan in it.
What?
So I was like, oh no.
Did you watch it?
I haven't watched it yet. I'm gonna.
Interesting. Yeah.
We've pivoted, so we're not going to use Ammonite anymore.
Lots of other rocks and
exactly.
things.
we googled things to find on a beach.
Cool.
It was like
there's a lot of
fish
cool
eye.
stuff. Yeah. There's like a story about Legos being washed up on some beach in the UK.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And it's because a ship full of Legos sank
Like
at
went
one
down?
point or something like that. There's some weird story about that. And then you know what I've been seeing is that the road and coastline.
Yes.
There's rocks. I've been watching like Instagrams or something like that where there are big rocks and people are just chiseling the rocks in two and finding fossils and like
so that's
you
the
could
Ammonite
just
thing.
be chilling and like find like
A huge fossil.
is that
That's
what
what
that
an
is?
Ammonite is, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I
I
think
thought we
there's-
were talking about the rocks that open up with the crystals inside. Sorry,
Oh
that's
no, it's like
different.
a circular.
You're talking about the ammonites. That would
Yeah.
be so cool though.
Dude, I know,
So they
it's
already
so
got the
annoying.
idea. Damn.
I know. See,
Bummer.
I think that's also the thing with being a younger filmmaker too, is you come up with these ideas and then you're like, oh, that's actually the film that I watched 2 weeks ago.
And it's just I think you have to watch it and find you don't want to say the same thing twice. But that's the fun of the idea. There's no chance that film is exactly like your
No,
film.
exactly. Like we're not set in the 1800s, and it's not like an apprentice
Yes,
and a woman. So it's.
yeah.
I think it's. I sent
Fucking
it to.
apprentices.
Yeah, goddamn. I sent it to one of my friends, and he was like, "Yeah, that's an immediate rewrite," and I was like, "Oh, okay." But
So funny.
No, it's a good challenge to have to rewrite it, and I do think that it's gonna evolve as we go. But we're gonna try and shoot in January.
Oh damn.
Yeah, so we're looking to, because again, it's a run and gun, right? So it's
cool.
and I'm gonna use Anya and Faye from my previous film, Girls Together, because
Nice.
they
Oh,
became-
great.
Yeah, they were like, we're happy to do it.
Perfect.
So it's more of it's almost like a stepping stone project for me, where it's like I just want to flex the directing muscle again and shoot it in a different way from Girls Together.
A
like,
little bit less.
Yeah,
a little bit less
exactly.
production wise. Try and
Exactly.
see what you can do. I think that's
smaller,
really smart.
and like maybe a little cinema verite,
Yeah.
like shoot closer,
Yeah,
do something
cool.
funky with the camera. Like
Yep.
I think that we can have a lot of fun with it, and make it a smaller project that we don't have to boil the whole ocean, you know?
Yeah.
It's my corporate speak for you.
No, that's great. That's great. I wanted to ask about. So you've got that coming up. That's exciting, and I think that's really an indication of where you want to go. What else? I think that really covers it. Is there anything else like looking forward? Is
future,
there
yeah.
Is there any I think you got to take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're looking for post-production projects, but I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to touch on in regards to looking forward.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm every day I'm just kind of like floored that I'm even here, because I came from a background of like marketing and corporate. So I think moving forward, it's just taking it one day at a time and saying yes to all the projects that I can say yes to, and just trying to direct as much as possible, I think, because I'm still super, super new in directing.
Yep.
And I love it. Like it's another one of those things where I fall into it, and I love looking at why the character does something, and should we give it do we give them a red scarf or a blue scarf, and why do we do that? So in the future, I think just, applying for film funds, writing scripts
Yeah.
with people,
Yeah.
working with people like you on different things,
For
and
sure.
getting together. But yeah, it's terrifying because there is no set path, but it's also absolutely amazing.
It's freeing in a way,
Yeah, because there's no
to be able
path.
to-
So I think I'm just excited to keep going and see. And I would like to stay in the UK if I can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think hopefully we'll just all be on the same highway together, driving our little cars, and we'll see each other at the end.
That's the truth. I got one more discussion topic.
Yeah.
Call Me by Your Name. Oh my
I'm so glad you brought it up.
I watched it, and it's really fantastic. I watched Challengers first, and
Oh,
I
okay.
hadn't seen anything by Luca
Guadagnino.
Guadagnino. Wow, like
Challengers is crazy.
Challengers is crazy.
Did you see Bones and All?
I have not seen Bones and
Okay.
All. I want to see Queer. It looks really cool
yep,
as well. But Call Me by Your Name. Wow, that's a movie. And so I know your infatuation with Timothée Chalamet. Is that the right word? I don't know.
You can't say that on the podcast. No, guys, I'm really close.
Your love.
Yeah.
There's all these like Timothée Chalamet lookalike contests going on in like New York or something like that. I don't know what's happening. What is going on with that?
I wouldn't be caught dead at one of those because I'm too afraid to meet him. So if I ever came in the same, I saw him at BFI Film Festival. So like I did see that, but I would run away because you can never meet your heroes, right?
Yeah.
But Call Me by Your Name was not a Timothée Chalamet obsession thing. I feel like Timothée Chalamet being in it was a bonus.
Sure.
I didn't really know who he was until after. No. But
that movie's from 2018.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, and it's a book as well, and the book is fantastic.
Is it good? Okay,
it's fantastic.
I'll have to give it a read.
I think Call Me by Your Name is one of those films that I've watched countless times, but every time I watch it, I see something new, or I see something that like it's so driven into Elio's psyche.
Yeah. And
every decision that they made on that set is so based in his longing and his desire and his inner turmoil of who he needs to be and who he should be and who he can't be. And they brought it out so beautifully and so slowly and so painfully with every shot. And the arc of the movie is also you sit with it. You feel like you're in the villa with them. You feel like you're in this emotional relationship with them. I also think that I watched it at a time where I had a lot of feelings of like this like longing for someone and not getting the attention from them and fleeting moments. And I just felt like I'd finally been seen, as well as the book. I read the book last year for the first time, actually. And I'm going to reread it again.
For sure.
This Christmas, because it's at home. So
nice.
I'm going to go home and read it.
Crack it open.
But for me, it's one of those films where every line, every shot, like the way they frame it, I just find it's very well shot, so beautiful and so heartbreaking. I love the whole thing, but the two pieces that the two pieces that stood out to me the first time I watched it was the final shot where Elio is staring into the fire after he's just received a call. And
the credits roll and everything.
Yeah,
right? They stay there.
Yeah, he's just received a call that Oliver is getting married to someone.
Right.
And he is sitting there staring at the fire and just like about to cry, but is not crying. And you can feel the way that his chest is just breaking open. And then right before they cut, Timothée Chalamet decided to break the fourth wall. And I literally just got shivers. I know that breaking the fourth wall for some people is stupid or they don't believe it or whatever it is. But for me in that moment watching it, I think the first time, I think my jaw just hit the floor because I felt like the film had seen me in such a way that I'd never been seen before. And then the character looked at me.
Wow.
And I just had never experienced that. And I think the original watch just hooked me in that way. And now every time I watch it, I look for like editing. I look for cuts. I look for just like little things, lighting. And they had this thing, which I've never looked it up, but I think it wasn't on purpose. But a reel of the film is in like color negative. So it's like inverted, like red, white. And it looks like it's been... it looks like it was a mistake, essentially. But they put it in the film at a point of, like, memory and disillusion.
Oh, yeah.
And it surprises me every time. I literally forget about it every single time because it comes in the point of, I think it's, like, Elio and Oliver are on their, like, vacation together.
Yeah.
And it's just it's so different from everything else in the film. And I think it dives into this part of Elio's mind where he's in so much pain that this is ending, but he's also so happy that he has it. Yeah. And this weird inverted world and experience of that. I could talk about this movie for 3,000 years.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think I saw that it was a reference for Girls Together as far as maybe some of the cinematography or maybe some of the relationships and how it's kind of the story's being told. So it took a while for me to get to, but goddamn, like, 'cause it's just been on the list for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say, I very much enjoyed it. You know, this idea of I think part of it is kind of the framing of it, where it's kind of not too in your face and it's observational in some way.
Because
And
we are observing their relationship
Yeah.
with each other, and they're trying to make sure other people don't observe it
yeah,
the whole time.
yeah, totally. Right. So there's definitely a kind of a voyeur. You feel a little bit like it's a voyeuristic thing. You're another seat at the table. Maybe
Yeah.
you're part of the family even, you're the brother or sister or whatever.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of scenes where they're sitting in the back. Also that kind of remote area of Italy that they're in, you feel like you're, and again, talk about sound design, those sounds of like
Yes.
Italy in the hot summer where it's like you're kind of just out there.
Yeah, there's a great thunderstorm
and
scene as well.
Yeah, and there's just the vacation aspect of things where it's kind of like chill, but also the father, that scene with the father at the end is quite touching because you're kind of expecting him maybe to be a bit more brash or a bit more this or that way, and he's so understanding, almost like so understanding, but it's you almost feel like that's what Elios wants to hear is that just like because it seems like almost it is good parents, it is parents that care, and they're not, it's not that story where it's like, I don't, what you're doing is wrong, this or that or the other thing. It's not that. That's what's so exciting. I think that's an exciting aspect of the film is that it's there is kind of this inclusionary aspect of it,
right?
But the real heartbreak is in that they can't be together for whatever reason, and something that's their problem, not necessarily that the world is caving in on them,
right?
And that's something that kind of sticks to now,
yeah.
And that's I think that's what makes it timeless.
Yeah, and I do think that even what you said about the father, he goes, I think the line is along the lines of, we rip out so much of ourselves as to not feel anything, and
that's a good one.
That can be said for any emotional relationship or any emotion at all, and it's universal,
that it's and again, it's talking about love at the end of the day, and not necessarily who it is or what it is or why it is, it's and that's really, really important,
and the acceptance that sometimes relationships you won't end up with the person, but how thankful are you that you got to experience that person at that time in life, in this version of yourself, and that love,
and also it speaks to his youth. He's looks quite youthful in it, 17, 18, 19, that kind of high school or in between high school and college type of feeling. And goddamn, if you haven't had, I guess you're lucky to have ever had any type of experience where you felt some way about someone. Yeah. And I think that's what the film is really trying to get, is that kind of youthful exploration of that.
Yeah.
And yeah. That's, I think, one of the reasons why it's
Wait,
really,
is there anything you didn't like?
I'll be honest with you. I think I don't know. I totally get the last shot. Sometimes I feel like I don't know if. I think Chalamet was totally the perfect role fit for the role, but sometimes I felt like I didn't feel like he was necessarily connecting with what was happening.
Okay.
I actually think the Armie Hammer. Yeah. He's great cast. Almost he gives you like a Don Draper kind of vibe.
Yeah. He's
I'm Armie Hammer. And it's just so. Would on the surface appear to be this straight-laced kind of guy who is actually the opposite of that, and kind of this like free-flowing kind of just love is love kind of thing. Yeah. And I think he was like kind of the where I don't know what the word is, but Elio was more of kind of like the one flowing in the wind. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a very difficult role, and I think it just felt at times like I was a little bit on the edge of like, is he acting or is he really this person? For me. Yeah. For me, I get how it's like, oh my God, he crushed the role. I think the directing is fantastic. And I do think he was right, but I don't know. I guess if you're really splitting hairs, that would be something where it's just because I think the father really nails it. Yes. The mother's a little bit more kind of in the background, just a touch. It's like these male characters that are really kind of at the forefront of it, which makes a lot of sense. I think the setting is perfect. I just feel like it's a little bit like because Chalamet is playing a little bit of like a little angsty at times. The talking head shirt, and he's got the beret at the end. He's kind of a little bit more hip. He's like kind of
the fucking button
up. I think it's great.
I totally agree.
The costumes are great. Yeah, he's got the cool. The costumes are super cool. But sometimes I just feel like, and I think it's maybe more of a Chalamet thing than anything, because it's like right from there, I don't know everything about his entire career, but it seemed like that film sprang him to everything, to Dune, to Willy Wonka, to everything. And sometimes maybe it's more of like a kind of a problem with the system where it's like, okay, he's covered that role in such a way that's kind of people approve of. Yeah. And now he's kind of just getting put into other. I don't know.
I understand that.
For me, it's like, but I'm splitting hairs, I think. And I just think at times I was just looking at it a little bit like, am I being told that he's got to be this way?
I watched Stuck in Love, which is like a rom-com, but Nat Wolff, who used to be in like the Naked Brothers band in New York, but he's like an actor now. Yeah. He was in that, and I was curious because he gives off the similar look to Timothée Chalamet. Okay. I would be interested to see Call Me by Your Name with him as Elio. Because it's especially in that scene because he does play this like very soft boy, and I think that Timothy plays it in a way that, and the book kind of does this as well, where like Elio is really really book, soft, but he has this like edge to him as well. Sure. And I don't know if Timothée Chalamet walks the line well enough.
I think it's not an easy role, like 100%. Yeah, Jesus Christ, there's a lot going on there. You know what I mean? They're in the water, like all the kissing, like just it's super intense role. But I think, I don't know. That's just my thing of it is that I
love asking people that.
I don't know, but it's I think this Luca Guadagnino, he's very talented, and I got to see more of his films. Like Challengers, I thought was awesome.
Same, so fun.
This one was fantastic, but he seems to have done quite a bit. So I got to check out more of his stuff because again, like it's just the idea of like framing it back a little bit, and I could see a little bit of that in Girls Together, kind of like trying to get wanting the actors to just do what they're doing as if we're not there.
You know what's funny though? It just like I don't actually want to shoot like that again. Like in my the one thing that I really actually love is being like I want to be like in the face of the character. Yeah. So with this next one I'm gonna do the opposite of what I did with Girls Together, which was kind of set the scene, camera movement, but like let them do what they want to do in it, and now be like in there close-ups. Cool. close up just cool. see what happens if you go the complete opposite way.
For sure. Watch Bird. Andrea Arnold. I think she's really all about that, you know, with like her short films and stuff like that kind of like not chaotic but kind of like real life is happening even faster. With Call Me by Your Name, it's super slow. Different types of vibes, but all really good. We've gone on. This is probably the longest podcast I've done for sure. We've covered a ton of different stuff, and it's all really really awesome. And I'm already excited to have you on the next one. Maybe after you do the next short,
yeah, cool.
Or we'll just find a time. You know, maybe after some success at festivals with Girls Together, we can just do a catch up. I want to do round table types of things. We could do a.
Oh, I would love that.
I really want to do a. I've been saying this on all the podcasts, but I want to do like a director's commentary where it's like you, Sid, and Max, and me, and we watch the film.
I would have so much fun.
Yeah, it'd be really fun. Like, and we could just watch a minute, discuss, watch a minute. Just and we could have it even the lower corner or something like that.
I think that's a great idea.
So there's lots of good stuff coming up. Christie Arnold. Yeah, what do you want to say?
No, go. I was gonna thank you.
Christie Arnold, thank you so much for being on the London United Filmmaker Podcast. Can't wait to have you on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Greg.